Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be diving into the world of scientific journals.
Ooh, fun.
I know you're pretty keen to kind of get a better grasp of these publications and stuff. So
Yeah, definitely.
we'll be using the Wikipedia article on scientific journal to guide our exploration.
Okay, cool.
Now, you might be picturing dusty libraries and endless technical jargon,
Right.
but believe me, there's a lot more to these journals than meets the eye.
I believe it.
To kick things off, let's take a trip back in time.
Okay.
Imagine it's the 1600s.
Wow.
Scientists are making incredible discoveries, but there's no internet, no social media, not even email.
Oh my gosh.
So how in the world do they share their findings?
It really makes you appreciate how far we've come.
Right.
Back then, scientists relied on handwritten letters, face-to-face meetings.
Oh, wow.
And they even formed societies like the Royal Society in England.
Interesting.
They were essentially building their own networks to exchange knowledge.
So it was like an exclusive scientific club.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing those methods weren't exactly efficient for spreading groundbreaking ideas.
Right.
Did these clubs eventually pave the way for scientific journals?
Exactly.
Okay.
In 1665, two publications emerged that revolutionized scientific communication.
Wow.
The Journal des Savants in France
Okay.
and the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society in England.
Interesting.
These marked the birth of scientific journals as we know them.
So these early journals weren't just like magazines you'd find at a newsstand.
Right.
They must have had something special that set them apart.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They were designed with a specific purpose in mind to advance scientific knowledge through rigorous sharing and scrutiny.
Right.
Unlike trade magazines aimed at practitioners,
Okay.
these journals emphasized in-depth research, often highly specialized.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the distinction.
Yeah.
But how did they ensure that the research published in these journals was actually reliable and accurate? Was peer review already in place back then?
Peer review as we know it came a bit later.
Okay.
But even from the outset, scientific journals had unique characteristics that set them apart from other publications.
Right.
They insisted on expert authors, required citations and bibliographies to back up claims,
Okay.
and placed a strong emphasis on research methodology and findings.
Interesting.
This focus on rigor paved the way for the formalized peer review systems we have today.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So if I were to pick up a scientific journal article today, what would I expect to see?
Yeah.
Would it be just a long block of text, or is there a specific structure?
You'd find a highly structured format,
Okay.
and for good reason.
Okay.
A typical article starts with the title,
Mm-hmm.
followed by author information and a concise abstract summarizing the research.
Okay.
Then comes the heart of the article.
Right.
An introduction setting the stage.
Gotcha.
A detailed methodology section explaining how the research was conducted.
Okay.
The results of the study and a conclusion tying everything together. Finally, you'll find a list of references, citing all the sources used in the research.
It sounds almost like a recipe for scientific discovery,
Yeah.
with each section playing a crucial role.
Right.
But why is this specific structure so important?
Yeah.
Does it really make that much of a difference?
It's absolutely crucial.
Okay.
This standardized structure ensures clarity and transparency, allowing other researchers to easily understand the research and even replicate the study if needed.
Right.
This ability to replicate is fundamental to scientific progress as it allows for independent verification of findings and builds a solid foundation for future research.
Now that you mention it, I remember hearing about scientists trying to replicate each other's work.
Right.
It's not about competition,
Right.
but about making sure the findings are robust and reliable, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Reproducibility is a cornerstone of good science.
Okay.
And this highlights a critical point, the importance of publishing itself for scientific progress.
Right.
If scientists kept their discoveries to themselves, imagine the stagnation.
Oh, gosh.
It'd be like everyone trying to reinvent the wheel.
It's true.
Yeah.
Sharing research findings, even if they challenge existing ideas,
Yeah.
is what keeps science moving forward.
Yeah.
So publishing isn't just about personal achievement. It's about contributing to a collective body of knowledge.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Cool.
Publishing enables reproducibility, allowing other scientists to attempt to replicate experiments and verify the results. This independent verification helps ensure the validity and reliability of scientific findings,
Right.
strengthening the entire scientific edifice.
So by publishing their work, scientists are essentially inviting the entire scientific community to collaborate on a massive ongoing research project.
Right.
That's a powerful concept.
It truly is.
Yeah.
This collaborative spirit is at the very heart of scientific progress.
Okay.
Now, while we're on the topic of scientific journals, I'm curious,
Yeah.
are all journals created equal?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
With so many journals out there, is there a way to tell which ones carry more weight or are considered more prestigious?
That's where journal rankings and impact factors enter the picture.
Okay.
Although not a flawless system, these metrics attempt to assess a journal's influence and reach within its field.
Right.
Certain journals like Nature and Science are considered highly prestigious
Oh, wow.
because they publish groundbreaking research that often has a significant impact on the scientific community as a whole.
So there's a kind of hierarchy in the world of scientific journals, with some journals holding a higher position than others.
Right?
But honestly, the concept of impact factors sounds a bit like a popularity contest.
Yeah.
How do these rankings actually work?
Essentially, impact factors are calculated based on how frequently articles published in a specific journal are cited by other researchers.
Okay.
The more citations an article receives, the higher the impact factor of the journal.
Right.
It's a way of measuring how much a journal's content is influencing and shaping scientific discourse.
I see. So it's about tracking the ripple effect of a journal's publications throughout the scientific community.
Yeah.
But I can imagine there are limitations to this approach.
Yeah.
Do impact factors always tell the whole story about a journal's quality?
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right to be skeptical.
Okay.
Impact factors are just one metric, and they don't always capture the full picture.
Right.
They can be influenced by various factors.
Okay.
And sometimes a journal with a lower impact factor might still publish excellent research that's highly relevant to a specific field.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder to be critical of any single metric and to look at the bigger picture when evaluating a journal's contribution to science.
Absolutely.
But let's say a scientist has completed their research and wants to submit their paper to a journal.
Yeah.
How does it actually get published?
Right.
Is it as simple as sending it in and hoping for the best?
Not quite.
Okay.
There's a crucial step involved that ensures the quality and validity of published research. Peer review.
Yep.
It's the cornerstone of scientific publishing.
I've heard a lot about peer review.
Yeah.
But could you break down exactly how it works?
Sure.
What happens behind the scenes when a scientist submits their paper?
Certainly.
Oh.
When a paper is submitted, the editor of the journal sends it out to other experts in the same field, typically 2 or 3, to evaluate its quality and validity.
So it's like a panel of judges carefully scrutinizing the research before it can be shared with the world.
That's a good analogy.
Okay.
These reviewers, who volunteer their time and expertise,
Wow.
assess the paper's methodology, results, conclusions, and overall contribution to the field.
Gotcha.
They might suggest revisions to improve the paper or even recommend that it be rejected if it doesn't meet the journal's standards.
Wow, that's a pretty rigorous process.
It is.
It sounds like a quality control system specifically designed to weed out any weak or flawed research.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Peer review is essential for upholding the integrity and reliability of scientific knowledge.
Right.
It's what sets scientific journals apart from other forms of publication and gives them their credibility.
It's fascinating how much work goes into ensuring the quality of scientific publications.
Yeah.
Now with the rise of the internet, I can only imagine that publishing has undergone some major changes.
It has.
How has electronic publishing impacted scientific journals?
You're right. That's a key turning point in the history of scientific journals.
Yeah.
The impact of electronic publishing has been nothing short of revolutionary.
Wow.
Reshaping the way research is shared and accessed.
Right.
But before we dive into that,
Okay.
let's take a moment to consider another aspect of traditional scientific journals.
Okay.
The cost of knowledge.
The cost of knowledge. The
Yeah.
cost of knowledge. You've piqued my curiosity. What's the story there?
Traditionally, access to scientific journals hasn't been free.
Okay.
Universities and libraries have had to pay hefty subscription fees to provide their researchers and students with access to these journals.
Right.
This has led to what's often called the serials crisis. Okay.
Where the rising cost of subscriptions has strained budgets and limited access to knowledge, especially for institutions with fewer resources.
That seems like a real problem, especially in a world where access to information is increasingly important.
It is.
Yeah, I can see how that would create barriers for researchers and students who might not have the funds to access these expensive journals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The serials crisis has been a major driver of the movement towards open access publishing.
Okay.
The idea behind open access is to make scientific research freely available to everyone, regardless of their affiliation or ability to pay.
Open access sounds like a fantastic solution. Is it becoming the standard in scientific publishing?
It's definitely gaining momentum, but the transition isn't without its complexities.
Okay.
While open access eliminates subscription fees for readers, the costs of publishing peer review editing, online hosting don't just disappear.
Right.
Many open access journals have adopted a publication charge model where authors pay a fee to have their article published. So it's like shifting the financial burden from the reader to the author. That makes sense. But I can also see potential downsides.
Right.
Wouldn't the system favor researchers with more funding, potentially creating inequalities in who gets to publish in open access journals?
That's a valid concern. The potential for bias and inequity is a significant issue being debated within the open access movement.
Right.
There are ongoing efforts to address this, such as waiver programs for authors from low-income countries or institutions.
Okay.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but the goal is to find a system that makes scientific knowledge as widely accessible as possible while also being sustainable and fair.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of work to be done to find the right balance. But before we get too deep into open access, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
The impact of electronic publishing. You said it revolutionized scientific journals. Can you elaborate on that?
Of course. The shift from print to electronic publishing has been a game changer. It's accelerated the pace of research dissemination, broadened access to knowledge, and even changed the way research is presented.
Yeah, I can see how the internet would speed things up. No more waiting for the postman to deliver the latest issue.
Exactly. With electronic publishing, articles can be published online as soon as they're peer-reviewed and edited.
Right.
There's no need to wait for a print issue to be assembled and shipped, which can take weeks or even months.
Wow.
This speed is crucial in the fast-paced world of scientific discovery where new findings are constantly emerging.
It makes sense that speed would be essential, especially in fields where breakthroughs are happening rapidly.
Yeah.
But besides speed, what are some other advantages of electronic publishing?
One of the most significant benefits is increased accessibility. Electronic journals can be accessed from anywhere in the world with an internet connection.
Oh, wow.
This breaks down geographical barriers and allows researchers in developing countries who might not have had access to expensive print journals to stay up to date with the latest advancements in their fields.
That's a huge step towards democratizing scientific knowledge, making it available to a much wider audience. I imagine it's also had a significant impact on collaboration, allowing researchers from different parts of the world to connect and share their work more easily.
You're absolutely right. Electronic publishing has fostered a more interconnected and collaborative scientific community.
Cool.
And there's another aspect that's quite exciting. Electronic publishing has opened up new possibilities for presenting research.
Beyond just text on a page, you mean?
Exactly. Journals can now include supplementary materials like data sets, videos, interactive graphics, and even 3D models.
Wow.
These additions can enrich the reader's understanding and provide a much more comprehensive and engaging view of the research.
It's like moving from black and white to full color. Suddenly the research comes alive in a whole new way. I can see how that would be a major advantage, especially for fields that rely on visual data or complex simulations.
It's definitely a significant advancement. And we can't forget about the cost factor. Electronic publishing often leads to lower costs for both publishers and readers.
Right.
The expenses associated with printing, shipping, and storing physical copies are largely eliminated.
Okay.
This makes it more feasible for journals to offer open access options, as we discussed earlier.
Right. The financial aspect is a crucial piece of the puzzle. It sounds like electronic publishing has brought about many positive changes, making scientific knowledge more accessible, dynamic, and affordable. But with all these shifts, what about copyright?
Right.
Who actually owns the copyright to a scientific article in this digital age?
That's an important question, and the answer has evolved over time. Traditionally, authors had to transfer their copyright to the journal publisher upon publication.
Okay.
This gave publishers control over how the article was used and distributed.
Gotcha.
But this model has been challenged in recent years, especially with the rise of open access and the growing emphasis on authors retaining more rights over their work.
So are authors taking back control of their intellectual property?
In a way, yes. Many journals now use a license to publish model.
Okay.
This means authors grant the publisher permission to publish and distribute the article, but retain other rights like the right to reuse their work in future publications, or share it on personal websites or institutional repositories.
Okay. So it sounds like it's about finding a balance, allowing for the wide dissemination of research, while still respecting the rights of the authors who created it.
Precisely. And there's another development that's shaking up the world of scientific publishing.
Okay.
Preprints. Have you heard of those?
I've seen the term mentioned here and there, but I'm not entirely sure what they are. Are they like early versions of research papers?
You're on the right track. A preprint is essentially a draft of a scientific article that's shared online before it goes through formal peer review.
Okay.
Websites like ArcStaff have become popular platforms for sharing preprints, particularly in fields like physics, mathematics, and computer science.
So it's like giving the scientific community a sneak peek at the latest research before it's officially published in a journal.
Exactly. Preprints allow researchers to share their findings quickly and get feedback from colleagues before submitting their work to a journal.
Right.
It can help accelerate the pace of discovery and encourage collaboration.
That sounds like it has the potential to speed up scientific progress.
Yeah.
But what about quality control? Doesn't bypassing peer review raise concerns about the reliability of preprints?
You raise a valid point. It's important to remember that preprints haven't been vetted by experts in the field,
Okay.
so they should be treated with a degree of caution. Readers need to be aware that the findings presented in a preprint may not have been rigorously checked and could be revised or even refuted in the future.
So it's a double-edged sword. Preprints offer the potential for faster dissemination and increased collaboration.
Right.
But they also come with the risk of spreading unverified or even misleading information. It seems like there's a tension there between speed and quality.
Absolutely. The rise of preprints has generated much discussion about the future of scientific publishing.
Right.
How do we balance the desire for rapid sharing with the need for rigorous quality control?
Yeah. It's a question that's still being grappled with.
It sounds like we're in a period of significant change for scientific journals, with the traditional model being challenged and reshaped by new technologies and evolving practices. With all these shifts happening, where do you see the future of scientific publishing heading?
That's a fascinating question and one that's difficult to answer definitively.
Yeah.
But it's clear that the way we share and access scientific knowledge is undergoing a profound transformation.
Right.
The lines between traditional journals, preprints, and other forms of scholarly communication are blurring, and new models are emerging.
It's exciting to think about the possibilities, but also a bit daunting considering the challenges involved in finding the right balance between accessibility, quality control, and sustainability.
Indeed. But what's important is that we continue to have these conversations and critically evaluate the different models and approaches to scientific publishing.
Right.
We need to find ways to harness the power of technology while upholding the core values of scientific rigor and integrity. That's a crucial point. We need to be informed participants in this evolution, making sure that scientific knowledge remains accessible, reliable, and beneficial for all.
I couldn't agree more. And that's why it's so essential for everyone, not just scientists, to understand how scientific journals work and the vital role they play in shaping our understanding of the world.
You've given me a lot to think about. This deep dive has definitely opened my eyes to the complexities and the importance of scientific journals. They're clearly much more than just static repositories of information. They're dynamic platforms that shape how we understand the world around us.
I completely agree. And as we've discussed, they're constantly evolving to meet the needs of the scientific community and the wider public.
So to our listener, I encourage you to continue exploring this fascinating world. Check out some of the journals we mentioned, delve into the latest research in your areas of interest, and never stop being curious.
Remember, knowledge is at its most powerful when it's shared and understood.
Yeah.
Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us. It's amazing to think about how much the landscape of scientific publishing has transformed and is continuing to evolve. You've really highlighted how important it is for us to be aware of these changes and engage with them.
I absolutely agree. We're at a crucial point where we need to reevaluate how we share and access scientific knowledge. The traditional model is being challenged, and it's up to us to shape the future of scientific communication.
It feels like we're standing on the brink of a whole new era for scientific journals. We've talked about the past and the present, but I'm curious if you could design the ideal system for sharing scientific knowledge. What would it look like?
That's a thought-provoking question. There's no easy answer, as there are many factors to consider, but if I were to envision an ideal system, it would prioritize accessibility, transparency, and collaboration above all else. Imagine a world where all scientific research is freely available to anyone regardless of their location, financial resources, or institutional affiliation.
It sounds like a utopia for knowledge seekers. But how would we ensure quality and reliability in such a system? Wouldn't removing traditional publishing models and peer review open the floodgates to misinformation and unsubstantiated claims?
Those are valid concerns, and we'd need to address them carefully. Perhaps we could implement a more robust and transparent system of peer review, one that leverages the collective intelligence of the entire scientific community. Imagine open peer review platforms where anyone with the necessary expertise could participate in evaluating research. We could even develop mechanisms to ensure accountability and prevent abuse, making the process more open while maintaining rigor.
It's a fascinating idea. It's like crowdsourcing the validation of scientific knowledge, tapping into a global network of experts to ensure quality. But what about the financial side of things? If we move away from traditional publishing models, how would we fund scientific research and the infrastructure needed to support open access publishing?
That's a crucial piece of the puzzle. We could explore alternative funding models that don't rely on journal subscriptions or publication charges. Perhaps a global fund could be established to support open access publishing, ensuring that financial constraints don't hinder the dissemination of knowledge. Or maybe we could shift towards a system where research funding includes allocations for open access publication costs.
These are all really interesting possibilities. It's inspiring to think about a future where scientific knowledge is truly a shared resource, freely accessible to everyone who wants to learn and explore.
It's a vision worth striving for. And while there's certainly challenges to overcome, I'm optimistic that we can create a more equitable and effective system for sharing scientific knowledge, one that benefits both the scientific community and society as a whole.
Well, this deep dive has been incredibly enlightening. I feel like I've gained a much deeper understanding of the complexities and the importance of scientific journals. They're more than just dusty old publications. They're dynamic platforms that shape how we understand the world and drive progress in countless fields.
I'm glad to hear that. It's been a pleasure discussing this with you. And remember, the world of scientific publishing is constantly changing. Stay curious, keep exploring, and never stop learning.
Great advice.
Yeah.
And to our listener, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of scientific journals. We hope you've enjoyed the journey.